live.
Hey, and we're live on our special. I'm not even sure which one to call this. Is this a April Fool's edition? Is this the Easter edition of Chevy and Nasty? I guess Easter is the much bigger event, but April Fool's Day just happened yesterday.
Yeah, April Fool's was yesterday. Easter Sunday was on Sunday, and it was a long weekend for many. Did you get fooled by anyone on April Fool's Day?
I've been, I think, around the track one too many times for that one at this point, but it was kind of funny because my wife went to work. She works at WestJet, and I get a text from her early from the owner's lounge. Is this article that she sends me first thing Monday morning. It's kind of weird because you're coming off a long weekend. You're still thinking leftover meals. We'll talk about that in a bit. But she sends me this article that's up on their board about Elon Musk over the weekend made an announcement to make a bid for WestJet. And with the reason being that he wanted to test out his new hydrogen jet engines, and he wanted to try on a reasonable sized fleet. And I was like, yeah. I figured it out pretty fast, but for 1 second, Elon Musk looking at buying a Canadian airline, it was kind of a big deal. I got excited for a second, but it didn't last more than 10.
Well, you know what? I got played last week, as I mentioned in last week's intro, where my coworkers doctored a lottery draw winning sheet. So that one got me pretty good. I literally jumped out of my chair. This week I was pretty on the ball with the April Fool's jokes, but there was one that kind of got me that was kind of circulating on a few social media pages. And the one that got me was that they were going to be opening a great Western themed theme park just outside the mountains in Canmore with the eventual addition of water slides and stuff. And I've always thought that was a great idea for Calgary. When I grew up in Montreal, we used to go to Frontier Town up in upstate New York. And I thought, man, we need something like that here. And I thought, this would be great. So I was kind of in on that for a minute because I saw it on a couple of different feeds. But then I thought, this is an April Fool's joke. And our buddy Rubio, he sent me some news that he was going to follow up on, and he could let me know if it's confirmed. But he had mentioned that there might be a college football game being played in the middle of the ocean on an aircraft carrier. And I thought, wow, that's a cool idea. And then I think we both thought that it might have been an April Fool's joke. So yeah, a lot of times people go through elaborate pranks for April Fools, but I'm glad I didn't get pranked this week. But how about we get on with the show? Nasty's wearing his t-shirt. It does look incredible.
It does look incredible, Rubio. Thank you for that.
Courtesy of Rubio. But yeah, it's Ride with Chevy and Nasty. Tonight we got a fun one. You mentioned we're going to talk a little bit about food. It was Easter weekend. It's, for both of us, we do celebrate that holiday. Kind of a big deal. Talk about that. Talk about a movie that was made surrounding the trials and tribulations of Jesus Christ, the Passion of the Christ. So we're going to talk a little bit about that in the second segment. The big lead up to our mission to save a life, our suicide prevention training on April 6th on Saturday morning. We're having the facilitator of said training session, Craig Hannum, is going to join us, and that's going to be a fantastic interview. I'm really looking forward to that. And then, we got a bunch of odds and ends. Probably going to hit the overtime, Sheldon. I think there's a bit to talk about. I'm psyched up. Everyone's joining us. Some of you guys started the comments coming in before we even went live. So it's going to be a great show. Thanks for tuning in. Take a quick break. Be right back on the ride. So nice of you all to join us here on the Ride with Chevy and Nasty live on the NGBN.TV network. We are brought to you each week by our new sponsor. We announced them last week, Performance Freight Management. They are our title sponsor to the show. We got a neat ad we're going to play later on. They signed on. Let's give them a warm welcome because of their support. We get to do the awesome things we're doing on the air and some stuff we're going to announce next week. We got a big announcement, the Chevy and Nasty announcement. So thank you, Performance Freight Management, for jumping on board the ride. They get you where you need to go, and they get your stuff there too. Nasty, where do you want to start? Do we want to start poem? Do you want to talk about Easter? Why don't we start with the poem? What do you think?
You got to start with a poem, Chev. And you got a good one for us this week. I'm excited about this one. Jenna, let's cue that music. We are Chevy and Nasty. We're not shooting for the sky. We aim for the moon and the stars, and we give it the old Chevy and Nasty try.
It was Easter Sunday. From the cross, our Lord has risen. But would our faith be the same if they had just stuck him in a prison?
The Chiefs Rashi Rice was racing and then crashed. A Lambo, a vet, some bystanders' cars, they all got trashed.
So what does he do? He gets out of his car, fled the scene, ran away. When the dust settles on this case, I think there's going to be some hell to pay.
Well, two heads are better than one. We ask, is that always a fact? What if you meet conjoined twins? What if you enter into a marriage pact?
Ooh, we're going to have to talk a little bit about that one.
We got to.
But this is the ride with Chevy and Nasty, and we know it's a late Tuesday night. Maybe you're a little fatigued and your eyelids are heavy, but we know we are worth that fight.
Thank you.
Applause.
Thank you very much. I think before we get on to Easter, I think my favorite thing about the April Fool's, because every year companies come out with these things. Did you see Sriracha had come up with a new line of toothpaste? That was awesome.
That would be disgusting.
Yeah, but it was awesome. They had like the custom made wrap and label. It looked like the real deal. It would be disgusting, but I thought it was kind of funny. Anyway,
Sriracha. Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us. And if you're joining us, our regular guests or new listeners, did you get played on April Fools? Let us know in the comments, and we'll read them out. But Sheldon, we alluded to it. It's Easter weekend. We both celebrate. It's kind of a big deal. We got to start with where our minds are always at, and that's food. What was Easter weekend like for you and food? And how does your family celebrate Easter tradition?
Well, we're usually, for us, we're usually the ham. And I think traditionally you can go ham, you can go leg of lamb. There's those are sort of the two big ones. But this year we went a little bit different. I had my mom, my sister, my older brother all down from Edmonton on Saturday, and they had some business to do in town. So we went and we ordered a ginormous like a Western Chinese feast, like with ginger beef, spring rolls, egg rolls, deep fried shrimp, all that stuff. So that not the authentic Chinese, but the Western takeout.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. So we did that on Saturday. And then on Sunday, my wife again is at the airport. So, the last few years, she seems to work every holiday. So I get to cook the meal. And by my boys' vote, we ended up going with a turkey this year. Chris Rubio's favorite. We did a turkey with all the fixings, right?
Yeah.
But
that sounds good.
But I found this thing, and I know Rubio doesn't love the turkey and the gravy, but I started brining these things about 5 or 6 turkeys ago. And if you brine them for at least 24 hours beforehand, a little bit of cinnamon, some apple, a bunch of different spices, and it really softens it up, but it doesn't change the taste of the bird. But you know what it does? It makes that gravy delicious. And trust me, folks, I didn't become a 300-pound poet by skipping out on the gravy. So that was our meal. What about you, Chef?
Oh, I love it. Well, so my kids went with their mom to Montreal, go to visit their grandparents. And that was, so normally I split Easter. The kids come to me in the morning or in the afternoon after spending dinner, mom, or vice versa. But this year they had left on Good Friday. They left for Montreal. So I was, I wasn't alone, but I spent Easter a little differently this year. I went to my girlfriend's parents' place up in Drayton Valley. So for those that don't know where that is, that's about 3 hours north of Calgary. And I spent Easter with my girlfriend's family, her kids, her mom, her dad, her stepdad, her brother, her sister-in-law, their kids. And it was really neat because for the last number of years, being a split family with my kids, I didn't really do the Easter morning traditions. I usually got them in the afternoon, or if I got them, they did a lot of those traditions with their mom, like the Easter egg hunts and stuff. But I kind of got transported kind of back in time. My girlfriend's kids are a little younger than mine. They're 10 and 8. Her her nieces, her niece and nephew are very young, so I
Yeah.
got to see the Easter egg hunt and all that. But as far as food, Brittany's mom went all out. She did turkey and ham, so we had both, and it was amazing.
Wow. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of ovens.
Oh, it's a lot of ovens, a lot of work. They did such a fantastic job. It was a feast. I mean, I think I ate all weekend long. What I did want to tell you is that was the first Easter meal I have had in a while, because for the last number of years, because my kid's mom did the traditional Easter meal, I didn't want to compete. You know, the kids, if they were in my house, I didn't want to make a turkey meal just to compete with another turkey meal. And I found that was not fair. And I didn't care enough that I had to have the traditional meal. So I tell you, and I think we talked about this, Rubio's going to laugh, but for the last number of years, for any special occasion, instead of going for that typical meal, whether it was a turkey, the ham, or even a traditional Italian meal, I put it to my boys. I was like, boys, listen, your mom's making turkey tonight. What do you want? What do you want when you're at my house? And they're like, Dad, let's do Easter poutine. So we would go to like we've done poutine for every major holiday the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 years since COVID. We decided, you know what, poutine's our thing. I didn't do one this year, but that's kind of been my tradition thing. I created a new tradition. So, but
that's what it's all about. Do you think your kids, they ask for it, they're not going to complain if I
they remember it?
For sure they will. For sure they will. But speaking of Easter traditions and the kids, like for me, this one's sort of bittersweet. There's certain rites of passages that you have in your kids' lives, right? And my boys are now 16 and my youngest is 12. But we had the talk, and he came out and fessed up that, when it comes to certain things over the holidays, he kind of knows where it's at, right?
Yeah.
And okay, hey, thanks for, I tell him this. Now you have to be, and this is more of maybe a Christmas Day thing, but you've got to be part of the magic. A lot of this, the spirit that we bring behind beyond the huge importance of the religious aspect of the holiday, the family and everything getting together, the young kids running around, you're now a part of that magic. But you know what, Chev? This was the first year that we didn't have an Easter egg hunt. And even before that, one of my favorite things that we always did with the kids, right from the time they're young, we'd take them outside the night before, and we'd have our planters down underneath our walkout deck. So it's sheltered from the snow when there's snow. And we give them each about 10 jelly beans. And they go into the planters and they would plant jelly beans into each of the planters. And sure enough, every morning, what happens? The first thing they get up out of bed, they run down the stairs, they run down the other set of stairs, they go outside, and those little jelly beans sprung up into lollipops.
Oh, nice.
And I always thought that was the coolest thing, when they're kids and all that stuff. But even as they're getting older, hiding the Easter eggs the night before, I missed that this year. I felt like there's a part of me that got cheated a little bit because I like my routines. I still read the night before Christmas on Christmas Eve, right?
Well, it's interesting you said that, because again, I mentioned how I got transported back in time with Brittany and her kids and the Easter egg hunt, because she did a fantastic job setting it up for her kids at her mom's house. But I had mentioned that at Christmas time when I got back from Montreal after a really sobering Christmas, and going and watching my nieces go through their Christmas tradition, because I haven't had that with my boys in a number of years, because they always spend Christmas morning at their mom's house. So these traditions for me to see again, I really enjoyed it. And I guess when one day when I enter that phase of hopefully being a granddad, I think that's when you see it again. But I got to kind of rewind a bit, and it was really cool. But speaking of traditions, at Christmas time, you mentioned traditions food wise and things that you do, but there's also movies, right? We talked about Christmas movies you watch.
Die Hard is not an Easter movie, Chef.
Yeah, no, Die Hard is not an Easter movie, but the movie I was going to talk about that probably many people have seen that was very controversial was The Passion of the Christ. My Brittany mentioned that when she was a kid, she used to love sitting at the front of the church on a Good Friday, which is what I did, and they would go through the stations of the cross. And if you're Catholic, they go through all the stations, and they kind of go through Jesus's journey on Good Friday from his conviction to the crucifixion. And anyhow, I asked her if she had seen The Passion of the Christ, the movie that was made. Mel Gibson directed, he wrote it, and she hadn't. So I said, well, why don't we watch it tonight? So we watched it Friday night, and boy, she had a hard time. And for me, that's a Christmas, an Easter tradition to watch that movie. I really found that movie put that whole story into context. And I tell you, I don't know if any of the listeners have seen that movie. I know you said you didn't see it, but
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it.
It was really controversial at the time when it came out, right? It was controversial because, it really, really put, that journey and the pain that Jesus went through as a man, that he suffered before he rose from the dead. It really put it on screen in a very graphic and gruesome way that they didn't do back then. And I'm fascinated with that story. I said it in the poem, and I kind of joked, like, the foundation of Catholic and Christian faith, or Christian faith, would not be the same if Jesus had not gone through that. Like, if they threw him in prison to rot, the whole basis of our faith was that he died and then he went to heaven, and that
he was resurrected, right?
Right. And that had to happen. And growing up in a Catholic church that I did, they glance through the suffering. They talk about it. But that movie really, really, really put that out there. And Romeo agrees. Tremendous movie. Very, very emotional.
I haven't seen it. I have a hard time maybe taking myself to that point, because I heard it was very, very violent. Like, it was like,
well, it was gruesome. Like, he was getting lashed. He was getting whipped. They show skin. They show the flesh being torn off. It was really gruesome. But I just enjoyed the way they did it. At certain points, he had flashbacks to his life. When he was, sorry, I was going to say, he had flashbacks to his life when he was a carpenter, growing up with his mom, and they did a good job of connecting the story before he went through the garden and through the crucifixion, and kind of brought it together. And I thought it was a masterful movie. Mel Gibson got a lot of flack at the time. There was some weird coincidences with the movie. Jim Caviezel, who was the star who played Jesus in the movie, he got struck by lightning twice in the production.
Like, that's so. At first I was thinking, okay, Chev, you mentioned that before the show, and I'm like, no, that can't be real. That sounds like a propaganda thing. No, he did. Him and one of the producers, or one of the production assistants got struck as well. He took a beating in that movie, so he got struck by lightning twice. What else did I see? He got pneumonia. Yeah, he got hypothermia, because they're shooting it outside in the wintertime. There's a couple of mishits with the lash that left him with a 14-inch strip across his back, like a scar. Absolutely. So two things. One, I guess it can't get more real and authentic than that. But the other side is, maybe I'd be calling the union about that, right? Like, that's like even for us, Chef, in a lightning storm, what's the first thing you hear? Even if it's in a live game with 50,000 people, if there's a flash of lightning or thunder, everybody get inside, right? That is crazy what they went through to make that movie.
It's a crazy movie. I challenge you to watch it before next Easter, because I really want to get your take. I love introducing people to movies that I think were great films. I love that Rubio agrees with me, because he really does not agree with me on the poutine, but at least he agrees with me on the Passion of the Christ. There's some great comments, Sheldon, going on. I'd love to talk about the movie. We're going to have to take a break. There's great comments going on in the comment section. Thanks for joining us. Keep it going. We're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to have Craig Hannum. He's the retired U.S. Army Sergeant First Class that will be leading our suicide prevention education this Saturday, April 6th, on the NGBN TV network. You can still have time to register on ngbn.tv /save a life. You register. There's 2 sessions, one at 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and one at 9 a.m. 11 a.m. or to 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So we'd love for you to join us. Our goal is to train 100,000 people so that they can recognize the signs of suicide prevention. You can catch us right here on the NGBN.TV network, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter /X. We're glad that you're here. Spread the word. We want more people to join our little community. We're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we're going to be joined by Craig. It's going to be great. So stay tuned.
1 week after launching our exclusive sneak peek, NGBN TV was live for 3 days of continuous coverage from Super Bowl 58 in Las Vegas.
NGBN TV is live from Las Vegas for Super Bowl 58.
The one-of-a-kind streaming TV network for men in their 40s, 50s, and 60s was the conversation for the big game about men's mental health. And the world of athletes, celebrities, and influencers were on notice. But we're just getting started with new partnerships announced like the Team Nike 3-on-3 Championship and new platforms available to download the NGBN TV app. So, what are you waiting for? Download the app today from your favorite streaming device or check us out at ngbn.tv. This is NGBN TV.
Performance Freight Management is a global logistic freight shipping company that will handle the entire shipping process for any package to any country. Whether it be a simple truck shipment from your office to Toronto or your company importing generators from China, PFM Freight handles it all. We have the expertise and technology to handle any shipping requirements. Skip the guesswork and let us take the shipping pain off your plate.
Right. Hey, you're just sitting down.
I was readjusting. I keep sliding off the camera here a little bit. So
yeah, make sure you don't lean to your right. You seem to lean to your right.
You can figure that out. You picked my right, but I keep kind of
but you know, whenever I do our clips for our social media, you're always off on the right side of the screen. But welcome back, everyone. We're talking logistics, and we just saw the commercial from our logistics company sponsor, Performance Freight Management. If you're shipping something or need something shipped quick, you got to check them out. Daryl, who's listening tonight, he's the man at Performance Freight Management. If you call them, you call Daryl, and just tell them Chevy and Nasty sent you. But I
heard a rumor about Daryl that if WestJet's missing a wing on one of their planes, since he fly Boeing, may happen from time to time. I don't know. But Daryl's company, he actually takes, he's got all kinds of different rigs and trailers for different purposes. So he can hot shot a pump up north, but he can also head down to the States and pick up a wing and deliver for WestJet.
Well,
so pretty cool company. I'm looking forward to getting to know this guy a little bit better.
Pretty cool.
But back to the comments. So first off, I got a bone to pick with Jamin here. Jamin, I'm sorry. Fatal Attraction is not an Easter movie. And I'm wondering where he's coming from on that one. He goes, well, there's a bunny, so it's an Easter movie. A bunny does not qualify as an Easter movie. And Rob Evans jumps in on that, saying that, there's a bunny in Holy Grail too, Monty Python's. But that might be closer to a Christmas or to an Easter movie. I don't know. Were you a Monty Python guy growing up, Chev?
No, you know what? I watched a couple of the movies. I really enjoyed them, but I don't remember them too much. I know that, and like all
you don't
guys,
remember the Holy Hand Grenade.
No, guys in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s will, for lack of a better term, crucify me for not knowing the movies by heart. Those are the kind of the movies that people recite. Nanamana joins in. I don't know. I just read one of her comments, and it says, why? Because the wicked women boiled the bunny. I don't even know where that came from. But I think that's a great comment. Rubio's been piping in on my poutine tradition. Rubio, poutine is great as every holiday dinner, especially if you hate turkey. There's not many options for you, brother. You got to pick one. But I also want to welcome our buddy Brad Fair to the show.
Yeah,
Brad Fair from Vacay Bruco. Hopefully soon another sponsor. And you know what? Maybe we'll connect Brad with Daryl at Performance Freight Management, and Daryl can ship his beer all over the world. Alien is an Easter movie. Okay.
All right,
guys. Are everywhere. Yeah, okay, this is going off the rails. Chevy and Nasty, the ride on the NGBN network. This week, we've got a very important mission. On April 6th, as we mentioned before the break, we are trying to train 100,000 people in suicide prevention. And we brought in the specialist to do so because I couldn't do it. Sheldon couldn't do it. We brought in retired U.S. Army Sergeant First Class Craig Hannum to lead this. He has a ton of experience. And before the training on Saturday, we wanted to introduce you to Craig because we think it's really important that you get to know the guy that's going to help us recognize these signs in our families, our friends, our loved ones, people we work with, people we play with, and we want to make sure that we're keeping to the mission. So, Jenna, is Craig backstage? Here is the man.
Hey, there he is.
He's got his Boston Red Sox hat on. If Bruno's watching, he's gonna hate that because Bruno's a big Yankee fan. So, it's a big deal, right?
We got therapy for that.
Greg, thanks for coming on the show. We spoke the other day, and this is a big deal coming up. We talked about you contributing to the network in this manner. You know, I said, how do we kick this off? And you said, you know what? Just ask me one question. How did I get started in this? So tell us a little bit how you got started in this, because obviously you have a great resume with your Army background and your civilian background as a suicide prevention specialist. How do you make that transition?
Yeah, so I did 20 plus years in the Army and then got hired right away to be the program manager to take over all things suicide prevention for the Army. And they gave me 3 bases and they said, make a change. I said, all right. Especially when I told them it was broke. So I told a lot of senior leaders that what we're doing, wrong approach. We're just doing a checklist. We need to have a conversation. You know, the guys are out there hurting, ladies are hurting, families are hurting, kids, you name it. You know, contractors, civilians, the like. You know, we got to figure this out. So it took a very aggressive take on it. Just traveled a lot and started having one-on-one conversations with people to figure out what's going on. Completely redesigned the training. It took me about a year to figure out the right delivery method. You know, because death by PowerPoint is a horrible thing. And at the time, the slides were like 90 slides. It was insane. It was just, and the guy that was in charge of it before me, I hope he's watching and hope his ears are burning. If not, he's going to have a really good nightmare. But he would sit people together for 2.5 hours and just say, talk about suicide. And I'm like, what are you doing, man? I was like, that's a colonel over there. And over there is a private, and they're not going to talk to each other about this subject because we made it so taboo. And our approach was just negative. If you were suicidal, I just want to put you in the corner. You know, take your dope, listen to Pink Floyd, stay out of sight, out of mind. That's how we dealt with suicide. Or we put them all in one big unit and said, oh, all the broke people go over there. And then when war kicked off, you know, if somebody came forward and said, hey, I don't want to go on this deployment because I'm suicidal, you know, we mocked them. We called them a sissy, you know, and that carried on for, you know, way too long. So when we had to present, you know, positive change and tell guys that, you know, senior leaders that you are wrong. They don't like hearing that because of ego. I didn't care, man. I'm all about tearing apart somebody's ego, you know, because if your ego has low self-esteem, then you've already got problems in life anyways. You know what you're good at, be passionate about it. And then I did that for 4 years. Then COVID happened. And, you know, that took people who were already at risk and made it worse because we told them to stay home because going outside is bad, which we all know was wrong. You know, the whole approach, it just horrible how we dealt with that. But anyways, you know, so it made things worse. And now we started on the Rubio method today. Chris was talking about there's this huge spike in alcohol related incidents. Well, gee, I wonder why. It's called a side effect. You know, so we have that happening. So that can actually lead people into suicidal behavior as well. So then I went into corporate. Go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was just going to make a comment. We had a whole cultural shift. Day drinking was a joke. We joked about, hey, all of our kids are being raised by day drinking teachers, right? And so that was a serious cultural shift that, depending on what state or country you're in, lasted over 2 years, right? Yeah, it was a cultural shift.
Well, especially with education, especially, you know, the middle school to high school age bracket, where we said, nope, don't go to class. We're going to do everything online. We didn't have an infrastructure. You know, a lot of districts didn't have that infrastructure to teach online. But we're telling teachers, figure it out. So yeah, now we have day drinking teachers. We have kids who aren't showing up. We can't hold them accountable. You know, our learning across North America has declined. And it's funny because, God, one of the anecdotes I have on how we were not prepared as a society to deal with this issue with the pandemic was I was in a grocery store and I was getting the ingredients to make some pico de gallo. You know, so I'm standing next to a guy and he is struggling because he's got the rubber gloves on, he's got his mask on, and he can't open up the little plastic bag to put his vegetables in because what we used to do? We used to lick it, you know, no big deal. We'd open it up. So I I'm watching him. I'm just kind of giving this look like, pay attention. In the water spouts, you know, I just grab some water and I tap. He goes, oh, I didn't even think about that. I said, well, that's not our problem. He goes, what is? I was like, look at that lady over there. He's like, what do you mean? I was like, check her out. So picture a lady, elderly, tiny little thing. She's got the face shield on, 2 masks. She's got the veterinarian gloves all the way up to her elbows. And my next stop is the tomatoes where she's at. So I'm at the avocado. So I'm like, okay, they're safe and sound so far, but I need to get those tomatoes. So I'm watching her struggle with this bag. She lifts up her visor, pulls down both masks, licks the bag, opens it up with her gloved fingers, and then starts grabbing tomatoes. I was like, yeah, I'm done. We're not ready. So I just walked out.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that
Well,
was
let me ask you this question. I just want to back up for a second because you said you're in the Army and they approach you about fixing 3 bases. Now,
yeah.
you know, with the stigma associated with mental health and the stigma associated with suicide, I guess 2 questions is how were they able to identify the problem? And then how big of a problem was it in the Army? Actual suicide, you know, like, was it like, what level of alert were they that they needed to call you in and fix it?
In 2012, we lost almost 400 active duty soldiers in the Army. That's
Active
just
duty.
in 1 year.
Wow.
In my 24-year career total time in service, I lost 182 men just to suicide.
Wow.
You know,
Wow.
and that was just my experience to it.
And the
And it was
reason,
around
oh, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead. Continue.
well, it was around 2010 when I was stationed at Fort Huachuca, Arizona, and a friend of mine who turned out to be my director when I became a civilian, Kevin Mills. You know, I approached him. I said, "Hey, we have a problem," because I was in charge of military police on the base. So I've got my first responders go into these calls where we don't know how to deal with. You know, we didn't know how to respond to mental health distress. We didn't know how to, you know, talk somebody down from suicide, so to speak. And then if we did get somebody, you know, safely away from the means or an attempt, whatever, we taught them like they were a criminal.
Mm.
You
Yeah.
know, and you'll hear me say it on Saturday, which is really cool. I'm very excited for Saturday. I'm glad you guys are putting it out there because that's just the icebreaker. The plan is to get me into 100 cities in the next 18 months across North America, you know, to really preach, you know, more or less the gospel on how to prevent suicide. But you'll hear me say it on Saturday that you can't say the word commit. We have to learn how to change our own language because rapists commit rape and murderers commit murder. Nobody commits suicide.
Mm.
It's not a crime. But still, a lot of across a lot of societies will teach it as though it's criminal, and that's
Right.
how we're going to deal with it.
So how frustrating was it for you then when you stepped in there? And I don't know how much training you had going into that, or if it's like, hey, Craig, it's your job, figure this out. But you talk about that checklist approach. And you see that so often. That tells me if I see a checklist that we've got to do this, okay, we've checked that box from the higher ups. We've got that addressed. It's off our hands. How
Right.
frustrating was it for you to see that? And where did you get the inspiration to completely change the program over those 3 bases?
Well, that's when it started in 2010, where we created a suicide response team, and we basically got the commanding general's buy-in to say, "I need to build a team, and I need you to tell them that they will do this." So we made it mandatory. And at first, they didn't like it. A mental health provider didn't want to be on call. A chaplain didn't want to be on call. You know, and other advocates didn't want to be, you know, part of the solution. Senior leaders didn't want to be, they didn't want to be bothered with it in the middle of the night. So it was a lot of growing pains. And then I retired in 2015. I was actually offered the job in 2014. My first year was probation. So you kind of just, you know, walk on eggshells a little bit. Yeah, I was pissing some people off, you know, to include my incumbent who took over because he was retiring. And again, the way I saw him deal with it was just completely wrong. It was a check the block. I did my 1 week, my one training that I'm required to a week. That's it. I'm going to separate them. You guys are going to talk about suicide. You guys fix it. And here is my brochure. And here's a handout. Or here's a quick flip card chart deal, whatever. Just and read about it. Oh, and don't forget about it. Oh, and make sure you keep your little card that you're supposed to keep in your pocket in your pocket. That way it can be an inspectable item. So everything was being a checklist. I was like, no, we need to change it. So when my probation was over, it took me that year to find the right delivery method. And I asked my boss, I said, hey, can I go forth and do great things? He's like, yeah. I said, I'm pissing people off. He's like, I hope so.
Hmm.
So I did. Not everybody liked it, but we wrote policy. We changed how we dealt with it. We created first responders. So what I did was I was training first line leaders to be my first responders across those 3 bases. So if you had a problem, you knew how to deal with it because I gave you advanced training. If you didn't know how to deal with it, you're going to call me so I can show up, so I could be on a plane. And one of the bases I had to deal with was Naval Air Station Pensacola, you know, all the way in Florida, and I'm all the way in southeastern Arizona. You know, so getting a call in the middle of the night to get on a plane, you know, that could be daunting, but I did it. And in the year 2019, we didn't have any suicides among those bases. You know, so obviously it
Wow.
worked. It
What
was
what what Craig, that's an astounding, like, fact you just threw out there. What do you think really drove that? Because I think that can kind of get into the way that we take on a problem. If you get those kind of results, and I know we're not going to be at zero suicide forever, but what do you think was the number one reason that in 2019 there was zero suicides amidst a rash of suicides?
We taught them how to have a conversation. We got rid of the checklist. We had a foundation for training that was required by the Army. I couldn't sway from that. However, I was able to add to it by saying, let's just talk. How you doing? Randy, what's going on, man? Don't walk in there if you get a phone call saying, hey, so-and-so is suicidal, can you go talk him down? You don't walk in going, okay, are you suicidal? Because that's a checklist. Hey, man, what's going on? I understand. And I'm gonna know your background, a little bit about what's going on. And then we put what really upset people was when I would ask, who is at fault when someone kills himself? And I know the network lost somebody a few months ago, Jim, 7 months ago.
Yeah.
And I get that. And I apologize for that. It sucks. And I'm saying that because I don't want to be insensitive when I say this, but the individual who takes their life, they're the person at fault. Otherwise, it's not suicide. It's murder. It's an act of God. It's a natural disaster. It's illness. It's an accident. And when I started saying that to people, oh man, that upset them. They said, you can't say that. I said, yeah, I can. I say, I didn't take their life. You didn't take their life. They did it. Like, no. The last person they talked to, that's the person at fault. Nope. No, it's not. Well, all these things that were going on. Cool. Maybe those are just contributing factors. Or when I would read a letter and people's like, hey, there's a detailed letter here. I was like, yeah, it's pretty detailed, but I have no idea why that person took their life that split second they decided to do it. Everything that they led up to that was a contributing factor. So then one other thing we changed was I had to tell the commanding general of each base why that person probably most likely took their life. Okay. So I had to figure out everything weeks up to that moment, all these things that were going on in their life, all these warning signs. So when people say there was nothing, it was out of the blue. We didn't see, we didn't hear anything. He didn't say anything. She didn't say anything. No, there's always an indicator. And that is the problem. And that's why I'm so glad to be part of this network now, that we're going to teach people how to pick up on those subtle indicators.
So Craig, let's talk about that in a second, because we are having this training coming up on Saturday. Yeah. You're leading 2 sessions, talking a lot about that military background. How, and I don't know if the word is easy, but how transferable is the training that you've done for the military and sort of, I guess, the contributing factors there to, I guess, a typical society? And one of our listeners, Rob Evans, like myself, is a first responder. He's actually a fire chief of Redwood Meadows volunteer department just outside of Calgary. He's also 911 dispatcher in Calgary. So he has seen tons of trauma from both, on scene to being on those calls. And myself, as being a firefighter, a lot of people in our brotherhood dealing with post-traumatic stress, have many people on our job, either on the job or retired, that have attempted or taken their lives. How is that transfer from the military, where you see death and dismemberment daily, to sort of first responders in that world of emergency response, and then to, I guess, like what we consider a typical population, people just going through maybe what would be considered regular everyday stressors, or a combination of stressors that they've accumulated to your life? How can you make that distinction? And when you do the training, how do you attribute for that?
Well, I think that's where I was fortunate, because I had my soldier aspect where I was deployed, and then I had my first responder aspect where I was a military police officer. But I also trained all the first responders, the firefighters, the medics. We started training law enforcement departments and agencies, in responding to mental health distress. And then the whole foundation of it was, you understand first aid. Get any first responder out there. I don't care if it's a day one a probie, a rookie cop, whoever it might be. They know how to deal with basic first aid. They can show up in an accident, they can splint a fracture, open chest wound, all that jazz. But then it was like, okay, do you know how to deal with suicide first aid? Because that's similar, but it's not so much trauma, filled. It might be traumatic what you're hearing as the person talking somebody else down. And that's what we're going to prepare people for, is, hey, be shocked. They're going to tell you something. You're going to be completely surprised. Like, whoa, wait a minute. What do you mean you want to take your life? That might come as a surprise to you, but they're not going to voice it. You're going to voice it.
Mm.
You know, perfect example for the layman. Say we train all these people, and I guarantee you what's probably going to happen is before the weekend's over, somebody's going to be in a supermarket or department store, and they're going to see somebody who just something doesn't look right. You know, not the first responder, just any walk of life, like you were saying, and they see somebody staring at broccoli, and you've gotten all your items in the produce section. That person is still staring at the broccoli. The broccoli hasn't moved. The broccoli doesn't talk back. What's going on? You just walk up and politely say, "Hey, are you okay?" Because you've been staring at that broccoli for a hot minute and it hasn't said anything back to you. So what's going on? You know, an icebreaker of humor that always helps. And then they kind of look like, "What do you mean?" "Well, you look like you're upset about something." That's what people typically, historically, that are under distress want. They want somebody to say, "Oh my God, do you see the scars I'm wearing?" "No,
Yeah.
I have no idea." "Do you see the trauma that I'm dealing with?" "Nope." You know, Dave Parnell, Detroit fighter chief, the chief of the fire department up there in Detroit. His tagline that I use in my training all the time is, I wish my head could forget what my eyes have seen."
Mm.
You know, because the trauma they've seen. I just saw somebody post on there, the youngest suicide they dealt with was 12 years old.
Yeah.
The youngest one I got called on was 5.
Mm.
But again,
Wow.
you have to have the conversation, because when I got the call, like, "What? A 5-year-old called 911 on a cell phone, said I'm going to kill myself," and hung up? And they're like, "Yeah, and we know the address." I'm like, "Okay, I'm on the way." Well, Dad answers the door. I knew Dad. He was a master sergeant. He's like, "Greg, why are you at my door?" I was like, "Where's your son?" He's like, "Oh my God, what are you talking about?" So he goes and finds his kid. He was fine. He was in his bedroom. So the three of us sit down, him, his son, and Mom. And I said, "He called. Here's the recording." Said, "I'm going to kill myself," and hung up. I said, "What has happened in, say, the past 4 hours?" You know, what a child at that age would remember. That was traumatic. He got grounded from his Xbox. The
Mm.
kid was not suicidal. Now we had to make sure that the wizards saw him, and the clinicians did their part, because that's not my role. But we knew 99% that he was not suicidal. He just
Right.
wanted his Xbox back because he got grounded from it. But what he
Mm.
heard 4 hours prior to that was his mom saying, "Well, if he doesn't let me do what I want, I'll just tell him I'll kill myself." It was learned
Right.
behavior.
Right. Yeah.
So that wasn't a suicide call. That was somebody pissed that they got grounded from their Xbox. So, a couple of questions are, why does a 5-year-old have an Xbox and a cell phone? But hey, that's a parent problem, not my issue.
Yeah.
The oldest one I dealt with was 72. You got a Vietnam vet who is in extreme pain all day long, terminal illness. He was going to drive to the top of this mountain, shoot a prize deer, and then jump off the cliff and kill himself.
Mm.
Well, he went up a road that was washed out. His truck gets high centered on this big boulder. He opens his door and falls over 250 feet and breaks both legs and survives. So when we were propelled down to get to him to save him, I'm like, "What was your plan here, sir?" He goes, "Well, I was going to kill myself." I was like, "Well, that didn't necessarily work out." He goes, "No, no, no. I didn't get a chance to shoot the deer, open the door, and fell out." I said, "What's your plan now?" He goes, "Man, when I was in free fall, I realized I didn't want to die." I was
Mm.
like, "Okay." So the lesson I took from that one was, I know people don't really want to die. And everyone who's attempted in front of me or around my guys, they've always said the same thing: "Please don't let me die. Save my life. Oh my God, I'm losing a lot of blood." Or when you bring them back from asphyxiation, whatever it might be, or they take a bunch of pills and they pass out and they wake up because, we pumped their stomach.
Yeah.
And I've heard that unanimously, that people don't want to die. Kevin Hines, when he let go of that railing on the Golden Gate Bridge and he was in free
Yep.
fall, he realized, "Oh crap, I do not want to die."
Yeah.
So I use that as that foundation, that we know it's 100% preventable, period, without a doubt. And it can be done just by having a conversation, listening to what they're saying. If they say, "Yeah, I do want to kill myself," okay, cool. Eventually in this conversation, we're going to talk about if you have a plan. "Oh, I don't have a plan." Okay, cool, great. Don't make up one for them. If they have a plan, make sure you separate them from the means. Always
Right.
take ego out of it. Don't make it about yourself. Always ask permission to tell life stories. Like, "Hey, can I tell you something similar that I dealt with?" Yeah, ask for permission. That way it's not about you. And
That-
it's a painful conversation. It could take minutes. It could take an hours. It just depends.
That's
And then
awesome,
there's the
man.
postvention. How do we
Yeah.
take care of that person and the family after everything is said and done?
Which the average one of us have no skills, no ideas. You've seen it in movies, but you don't have that head knowledge or that training. And Craig, again, I guess what I'm so excited about. A lot of the guys that are on here are going to be joining us Saturday morning. And
Well,
guys, just a
yeah.
reminder here now, guys. Let's put this out. Check out Chevy, my social medias tomorrow. Share this, reach out to friends. You know what? I've got a friend group that I've got a couple of guys we're getting together to take this training together. Reach out to your boys, reach out to your wife, your friends, family. Do this thing together. This is important. And I'll tell you what, I'm inspired by what I hear you say, because I know you know what you're talking about. Like, you did it. You went through the pains of it. You saw something that didn't work. You worked until you corrected it. And I do have faith that I can learn something from this.
And you know what, Sheldon? It's free, right?
It's
free.
free.
It's
That's
free.
It's free.
It's free. It's going to cost you 2 hours of your time to sit down on a Saturday morning, depending where you live in North America. You sit down, you tune in, and like Sheldon said, you get some people. I've been speaking actually quite, I've had some back and forth conversations, and with our firefighters union and our pensioners group. So they've got a high interest in there. I spoke to one of our members from our union today, and they spoke to the medical director, and they just wanted to take a look. They want to vet. They checked out the center. Like, yeah, we're putting out an email tomorrow, I guess Wednesday morning, to the members to say, hey, this is available. Anything we could do to raise awareness. Obviously, like you said, Craig, no one's going to become a psychologist. No one's going to become an expert. But if we can get to a level of awareness, right? We use it in the fire department, probably in the military, where, you've got that awareness level, that technician level, and then that master level. Well, if we can get everyone at least an awareness, right? Because like you said, most people say we had no clue. We didn't see the signs, right? And anyone that's been touched by suicide, that's the first thing we all say is like, geez, if I would have known, and I fall into that same category. So I know that I'm really looking forward to this on Saturday. I know that everyone listening tonight is wishing that we could go through it tonight, but we can't. You got to wait.
And guys, it's just a 2-hour course. Yeah, it's going to blow your mind. It's going to open your eyes, and I'm sure we're going to get a ton of resources or learn some things about where to go afterwards. But Craig, while we've still got you here, we got to go to break here in a second. But where can people find out more information about you?
Go to my email. All right, Craig@ngbntv.com. Send me a questionnaire. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. And after talking to Ian, I've got to get my Instagram and Twitter and all that other jazz squared away so that people can reach out with greater ease. But eventually by this weekend on the website, you should be able to see a link on how do I get Craig to my community.
Perfect.
Because that's our goal. 100,000 people on Saturday and in at least 100 cities in the next 18 months, just to get people proficient and then really add to the training. Because there's this 2-hour class. I can do a keynote speak that's maybe 45 minutes to an hour, a 4-hour course, which makes you a suicide interventionist. It just hones your skills already existing, and it's for anybody, any walk of life.
Well, I tell you, man, we are looking forward to your training on Saturday. We're looking forward to, again, solidifying our relationship with you. This has been a fantastic conversation. I'm sure we're going to have more, Craig.
Thanks for having me, Jones.
Really appreciate you having on the show. People listening in, there's tons of comments coming in. Everyone's really interested. And sometimes when people are very active, they're interested, but also sometimes when they're quiet, they're really interested and they're just listening and hanging on every word. So really appreciate that. We're going to take a little bit of a break. And then when we get back here on the ride, we're gonna lighten it up a little bit. You can follow us at Chevy and Nasty at Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, X. We're brought to you. This segment was brought to you by WeDrone, and our show. We got to thank Performance Freight Management for taking us through the entire ride. Let's take a break, Sheldon. Lots to cover when we get back.
1 week after launching our exclusive sneak peek, NGBN TV was live for 3 days of continuous coverage from Super Bowl 58 in Las Vegas.
NGBN TV is live from Las Vegas for Super Bowl 58.
The one-of-a-kind streaming TV network for men in their 40s, 50s, and 60s was the conversation for the big game about men's mental health. In the world of athletes, celebrities, and influencers, we're on notice. But we're just getting started with new partnerships announced like the Team Nike 3-on-3 Championship and new platforms available to download the NGBN TV app. So, what are you waiting for? Download the app today from your favorite streaming device or check us out at ngbn.tv. This is NGBN TV.
Well, Sheldon's not there. He's taking his break as he usually does. So, welcome back, everyone. Thanks for being part of that. We had Craig Hannum on leading the training that we have coming up on April 6th. That's this Saturday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Hey, Sheldon, you're back.
Hey, yeah, that was my April Fool's prank on you.
We got the bat phone rang while you were gone, and while you're gone again, the bat phone rang, and we were told by Mama Jenna that we cannot head into overtime. So we have about 6 minutes to cover one topic on our list of topics. So I give you the three things that we could talk about. We could maybe have a vote, and as the first person to pipe in, we are either talking about Rashee Rice's car crash and some consequence of that. We are either talking about Calgary Mayor Jody Gondek being booed at the Calgary Flames games, or we are talking about conjoined twins getting married to one dude. Where do you want to go? We might take into to account Jen is already on twins.
The conjoined twins. This is a touchy one. Not Mona says, Rubio, I want Nasty hairdresser's name. My wife gave me this last week, my haircut before last week's show, but thanks for noticing. I'll pass that along. Speaking of wife, yeah, this is a strange one. Chev, everybody on this planet needs love and they need connection, but some people have a harder path than others. And there is this famous story, these conjoined twins we've been following for the last 15 years, right? And they've been living this inspired life. And I don't have the names in front of me. I can't find them here right now, but because I thought we'd be getting that in overtime.
Brittany, and I'll find it.
Yeah. So anyway, while they're out going on double dates, one of them falls in love.
Yeah.
The other one didn't, right? Not so much, but one of them fell in love. And then this guy, after dating for some period of time, asked her to marry him. And I mean, it's a beautiful story, but Chev, come on. I'd be lying if I wasn't sitting here saying I've got this freaky fascination about how does that work? How do you marry someone and be intimate to somebody that's a conjoined twin?
I don't know. When this came across my desk, my girlfriend, Brittany, sent me this. She's like, you guys got to talk about this. Now, the girls' names are Brittany and Abby Hensel. I can't read. So
that sounds right.
Hensel. And yeah, you know what? They had their own reality show. I think in that reality show years ago, they talked about wanting to have a child. But yeah, coming from me, listen, I'm the most middle of the road, loving and accepting person. I have no transphobia, no homophobia, no phobia whatsoever. Even for me, this is a little bit odd, and I don't know where it's odd because it's on a number of fronts. Not that I can't see it happening.
Can we just call it out there and let's say what's odd? You've got two girls sharing a body and you're intimate with one of them, but you're not intimate with one of them. You're intimate with both. And how does that work? Odyssey, how does that work?
First of all, they put out a tweet or a Facebook post said yes. And it says, because everyone is asking, we're just going to tell you. So this is what they said. Yes, I have sex with my husband. Yes, I go down on him. What the hell? Yes, my sister Brittany is there. Is there? Yes, my sister and I orgasm as one. But when I sleep with my husband, she's usually reading a book or listening to a true crime. It's not like their neck is 40 feet long. Their neck is a normal neck. Like, you're like, it's like, Sheldon, put yourself close to the middle there. Wait, put yourself towards me. Wait, a little bit over. Yeah, this would be how close are you? Like, if we were, wait, come closer again. Come closer. Wait, I'm trying to do this.
Okay,
yeah. Okay. If you were having, if we were conjoined and you were having sex with your wife right now, there's no amount of book. There's no amount of book and noise canceling headphones that is killing that vibe. So I don't buy it, and I don't buy it because I just don't think it works. And what if?
But she said it does work.
Okay, but wait a second. What happens? This is the big one. I went down a whole rabbit hole yesterday, and I don't know if we have enough time for this. Jenna, why don't you tell me this, that we had an overtime? But what if the other one falls in love with a dude? What if the other one falls in love, gets married, and then who has the sex first?
So here's the thing. So if I had a little more time, I would have done a little bit more research, because I understand there's like categories on or so allegedly. So I'm told if you go onto your Pornhub or your other sites, there's categories, and I think you could probably do a little research, right, for the better of your own mind and humanity to get this thing figured out. But anyway, you know what, Chev? You know, it's an interesting one, and this is something I'm going to follow up on to see how that works. But I do think that we're going to have to call it a night here real soon. So I'm going to throw it back to you. Well, first to you guys, thanks for joining us tonight. You guys do your own research on this. I got a feeling we're going to continue this conversation.
You know what? We have so many leftovers for next week. We're going to blame Jenna on this one. She's saying sorry. We do forgive you, Jenna, but we don't want the people to blame us. You know, like we can't have, no, I'm just kidding. Listen, Jenna works so hard. She's got to take a flight at 6 a.m. So she's got to get out of here. You guys are awesome.
Stay awake,
next week,
Jenna.
Next week, we're going to talk about more stuff. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Performance Freight Management for sponsoring, Jenna for producing, Craig Hannum for joining us. Remember, April 6th, join us for the suicide prevention. Thank you all for joining us right here on The Ride.